Samuel 2, starting verse 27, we'll go through verse 32. And Joab said, As God liveth, unless thou hadst spoken surely, then in the morning the people had gone up, every one from following his brother. So Joab blew the trumpet, and the people stood still, and pursued after Israel no more. Neither fought they any more. Okay. So the people, we see in this, there's a battle between Joab and Abner and all the men. And so they're chasing him till morning. So they're chasing after him all night, which is very uncommon. Usually people just go back to their camp at night and start fighting again in the morning. But they're kind of fleeing the battle. So it's kind of like this battle it ain't the middle of a war yet, but so for them not to chase after him means that it's over, which really it wasn't. Anyway, so they're chasing after him and pursuing him. The trumpets were blown for both a sign of worship and an act of war and praising God. So they're kind of praising God because they went to a battle and now those they were battling against were fleeing. You know, Scripture talks about how we as Christians are in a battle against evil forces and against this world. And as long as our focus is on praising the Lord and drawing closer to Him, we're going to win that battle. And Abner said to his men, walked all that night through the plain, and passed over Jordan, and went through all Brithon, and they came to Manarim. So Abner's men, they just kept going. They were going to a place where most likely Joab's men wouldn't go attack them. Most likely they went back to the area of Benjamin. I didn't check out where these locations were, but for them to pass Jordan, they were headed in that direction. So sometimes we as Christians during our battle, we have to go in a place where we see safety. We have to surround ourselves with people who care about us to help us and for God to give us time to be strengthened to continue out in the battle. Now this isn't what they're doing. They're just fleeing because they're ultimately David's going to be the new king. God's anointed him. So they're in defiance from God's will. And as us, if we get in a place where we're stumbling or we're falling, oftentimes just taking time away from doing that give us the opportunity to get our head back on track to where we can be submissive to the Lord. Let's see. And Joab returned from following Abner. When he gathered all the people together, there lacked of David's servants 19 men and Ashel. So they were short 20 people, and they lost 20 men in this battle. You know, as we struggle, as we battle against this world and evil forces and our flesh, we'll have to sacrifice. The sacrifices will happen, whether it be we'll have to give up certain friends we've had so we can closer walk with the Lord. Anything that stands in that path from the Lord, ultimately, we might have to give up. So going in this battle, they knew they had a chance of losing some people. But as we see in the next verse, the servants of David had smitten of Benjamin and Abner's men, so that 300 and threescore men died. So there's more than 10 times that they did towards the enemy. You know, while the loss would have been hard for them because they lost men that were dedicated and fellow servants, they also knew that God had blessed them with this victory. And oftentimes we can look at what we're having to give up and we're focusing on that, then we're going to miss out on how God's choosing to bless us. You know, we can focus so much on what we ain't doing anymore that we miss out on what God's wanting us to be used to do. So they realized that, yeah, they may have lost some men, but ultimately Abner had no chance in this battle. And that's why they fled. We see over 10 times the amount of men lost. So they flee. Abner's men, clearly losing that many more men, knew that they were losing the battle, and that's why they were fleeing. Oftentimes when we feel as if we're losing a battle, not necessarily us losing it, we want to take and run rather than allow God to carry us through it. You know, it's easier for us to run away from the battle when we're in it than for us to go to the Lord as we should and have Him allow us to sacrifice what's needed to get us through to the victory. And that's what Joab and his fellow servants did. They were seeing the sacrifices. They didn't see Eshel die because he ran off chasing after Abner and was killed, and they didn't notice that till they found him. But these other 19 servants that fell most likely were happening when the battle was waging. You know, so they were seeing them die as they were fighting. So we're going to realize, and sometimes the things we have to give up, God shows us that it ain't really a sacrifice at all. But some things we have to give up to fight the flesh and be closer to Him in the Spirit are things that we may struggle with giving up. And that's kind of the way they looked at the 19 men. Yeah, it was hard to lose them, but that was a risk that had to be taken for the victory to be won. You know, for us to be more godly, we're going to have to give up the things that we don't want to, but He's drawing us to. And they took Ashel and buried him in the sepulchre of his father, which was in Bethlehem. And Joab and all his men went all night, and they came to Hebron at daybreak. So they're going back home. They bury him, and now they're going back home. As Christians, that's the ultimate part of our journey, to go home. You know, we do what God leads us to do here, but one day we'll go home, where we don't have to worry about the battle anymore.